Hello guys, I am back. So, this video might be a little different. Same concept, sobriety. Hey, that's just what I live for. And if you guys are not serious about sobriety, then I don't know what to say. Get off the page. Don't look at it. I don't know. But just talk to my sponsor. My sponsor suggested that I read from the big book, the AA Alcoholic Anonymous. Okay, and I want to read to you guys because you guys helped me along the way. So from the big book, Alcoholic Anonymous, if you want the book, let me know. I have an extra copy. So down in the comments below, okay? Okay, let's do our best to read and take in what I'm about to read. So, you ready, buddy? Are you ready? You ready to listen? Yes, you are? Okay, good boy. Here's my dog, and he is ready to listen to the boring but helpful stuff. Boring but helpful. Okay? Got it? So, if you guys want self-help, self-improvement, listen to it. If you guys want to quit alcohol, if you think alcohol is a problem and drugs is a problem, listen to my page. Help me, help you, help me type stuff. Okay? Okay. I want to read, okay? Give me a minute. Alright, how and where? Oh, I got this. I got this. I got this. I got this. Oh, here we go.
Ah, here we go.
Let's do this. Ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Can you guys hear me? See me? Can you hear me? Is that okay? That is okay. Turn down the music for a little bit while. And have the animals do what they do. So, oh wait. Oh man, it's a little dark for me to read. Give me a minute. Alright, hopefully this won't run out. Okay. Page 551 in the big book. AA. Alright guys, let's do this. AA has given me serenity of purpose and the opportunity to be of service to God and to help people wait. AA has given me serenity of purpose and the opportunity to be of service to God and to the people about me. And I am serene in the infallibility of these principles that provide the fulfillment of my purpose. AA has taught me that I will have peace of mind in exact proportion to the peace of mind I bring into the lives of other people, and it has taught me through the beginning of admonition, happy are ye who know these things and do them. For the only problems I have now are those I create when I break out in a rash of self-will. You guys understood that, right? I'm assuming following others and stuff like that. As long as I don't follow anybody, I will be at peace. Stay still in my sobriety so that I can continue to live in serenity. Okay. I've had many spiritual experiences since I've been in the program. Many that I didn't notice right away. For I am slow to learn and that take many guises. But one was so outstanding that I like to pass it on whenever I can in the hope that it will help someone else as it has taught me. As I said earlier, self-pity and resentment were my constant companions, and my inventory began to look like a 30-year diary. For I had seemed to have resentment against everybody I had ever known. All but one responded to the treatment, suggested in the steps immediately, but this one posed a problem. This resentment was against my mother, and it was 25 years old. I had fed it, fanned it, and nurtured it as one might a delicate child, and it had become much a part of me as my breathing. It had provided me with excuses for my lack of education, my martial failures, personal failures, inadequacy, and of course my alcoholism. And though I really thought I had been willing to part with it, now I knew I was reluctant to let it go. One morning, however, I realized I had to get rid of it, for my reprieve was running out, and if I didn't get rid of it, I was going to get drunk. And I didn't want to get drunk anymore. In my prayers that morning, I asked God to point out to me some way to be free of this resentment. During the day, a friend of mine brought me some magazines to take to a hospital group I was interested in. I looked through them. A banner across one featured an article by a prominent clergyman in which I quote the word resentment. He said, in effort, if you had a resentment you want to be free of, if you have a resentment you want to be free of, if you will pray for the person or the thing that you resent, you will be free. If you will ask and pray for everything you want for yourself to be given to them, you will be free. Ask for their health, ask for their prosperity, their happiness, and you will be free. Even when you don't really want it for them and your prayers are only words and you don't mean it, go ahead and do it anyway. It's crazy because I just prayed for my aunts and I didn't really want to pray for them earlier, but I did. Ask for their health, their prosperity, even when you don't really want it for them and your prayers are only words and you don't mean it, go ahead and do it anyway. Do it every day for 2 weeks, and you will find you have come to mean it and to want it for them. And you will realize that where you used to feel bitterness and resentment and hatred, you now feel compassionate understanding and love. It worked for me then, and it has worked for me many times since. And it will work for me every time I am willing to work it. Sometimes I have to ask for the willingness, but it will too always comes. But it will too always comes. And because it works for me, it will work for all of us. As another great man says, the only real freedom a human being can ever know is doing what you ought to do because you want to do it. This great experience had released me from the bondage of hatred and replaced it with love is really just another affirmation of the truth I know. I get everything I need in Alcoholic Anonymous and NNA, and everything I need I get. And when I get what I need, I invariably find that it was just what I wanted all the time. AA taught him to handle sobriety. God willing, we may never again have to deal with drinking, but we have to deal with sobriety every day. That's deep. When I had been in NA only a short while, an old timer told me something that has affected my life ever since. AA does not teach us how to handle our drinking, he said. It teaches us how to handle sobriety. I guess I always knew that the way to handle my drinking was to quit. After my first drink, a tiny glass of sherry, my father gave me to celebrate the new year when I was 13. I went up to bed dizzy with acceleration and excitement, and I prayed I wouldn't get drunk anymore. But I did when I reached college age. Much later, when I progressed to full-blown alcoholism, people told me I should quit. Like most other alcoholics I have known, I did quit at various times, once for 10 months on my own and during other interludes when I was hospitalized. It's no great trick to stop drinking. The trick is to stay stopped. To do that, I had come to AA to learn how to handle sobriety, which is what I could not handle in the first place. That's why I drank. I was raised in Kansas, the only child of loving parents who just drank socially. We moved frequently. In fact, I changed schools every year until high school. In each new place, I was the new kid, a skinny, shy kid to be tested and beaten up. As soon as I had begun to feel accepted, we moved again. By the time I reached high school, I was an overachiever, an honor student in college. I became editor of the yearbook. I sold my first article to a national magazine while still an undergraduate. I also began to drink at frat, fraternary parties and beer busts. Upon graduation, I ventured to New York to pursue my writing career. I landed a good job with a company publication and was moonlighting on other magazines. Regarded as something of my boy wonder, I began to see myself that way. I also began visiting bars after work with my older associates. By age 22, I was a daily drinker. Then I joined the Navy and was commissioned as an ensign to write speeches for Later, admirers. Later, I went to sea, serving a gunnery officer on a destroyer escort and emerging lieutenant commander. I also got into my first disciplinary trouble caused by drinking on two separate occasions. In the last year of my Navy service, I was married to a lovely, lively girl who enjoyed drinking. Our courtship was mainly in bars and spots when my ship was in New York. On our honeymoon, we had iced champagne by the bedside day and night. The pattern was set. By 29, I was having trouble coping with life because of my drinking. Neurotic fears plagued me, and I had occasionally uncontrollable tremors. I read self help books. I turned to religion for favor. I swore off hard liquor and turned to wine. I got sick of the sweetness and turned to ale. It wasn't strong enough. It wasn't strong enough, so I added a shot of vodka, and was right back to worse trouble than before. I began sneaking drinks when playing bartender for guests. To cure my dreadful hangovers, I discovered the morning drink. The early promise of the boy wonder faded, and my career began to drift. Although my ambitions still flickered, it now took the form of fantasizing. My values became distorted. To wear expensive clothes, to have bartenders know what to serve me before I ordered, to be recognized by waiters and shown to the best table, to play rummy for high stakes with the insourcence of a riverboat gambler. These were the enduring values in life, I thought. Bewilderment, fear, and resentment moved into my life. Where's that, buddy? What happened, boy? Bewilderment, fear, and resentment moved into my life, and yet my ability to lie outwardly and to kid myself inwardly grew with every drink I took. Indeed, I had to drink now to live, to cope with the demands of everyday existence. When I encountered disappointments or frustrations, as I did more and more frequently, my solution was to drink. I had always been oversensitive to criticism and was acutely so now. When I was criticized or reprimanded, the bottle was my refuge and comfort. When I was faced with a special challenge or social event, such as an important business presentation or a dinner party, I had to fortify myself with a couple of belts. Too often, I would overdo it and behave badly at the very time I wanted to be at my best. For instance, the 50th wedding anniversary of my wife's parents. The 55th wedding anniversary of my wife's parents was the occasion for a huge family reunion at my home. Despite my wife's entreaties to take it easy, I arrived home in bad shape. I remember being dragged, drink in hand, from under the grand piano where I had hidden to be locked in my room in disgrace. Above all, I was suffering inner pain because my performance and my accom- accomplishments in life failed to live up to my own expectations of myself. I had to an- answer. I had to exercise that pain with alcohol. And exercise. I know, wait. That pain with alcohol. Of course, the more I drank, the more unrealistic my expectations became, and the poorer my performance, and the gap widened. So the need to drink grew still greater. At age 40, I developed a large lump in my pot belly, and I feared it was a tumor. The doctor pronounced it a badly enlarged liver and said I had to quit drinking. I did. I went on a wagon with no outside help and with no real difficulty, except that I didn't enjoy life without drinking. I had to cope with the demands of everyday living without my comforter, my anesthetic, my crutch, and I didn't like it. So when my liver had recovered after 10 months, I resumed drinking. At first, just one drink on occasions. Then drinks came more frequently, but were carefully spaced out. Soon my drinking was as bad as ever, all day long, every day. But I was trying frantically to control it, and it had gone underground now because everyone knew I shouldn't be drinking. Instead of drinking in fancy bars and clubs, I had to carry a bottle of vodka in my briefcase, duck into public toilets, and gulp from the bottle, trembling in order to keep from falling apart. Over the next 2 years, I sickened rapidly. The enlargement of my liver degenerated into cirrhosis. I vomited every morning. I could not face food. I suffered frequent blackouts. I had severe nosebleeds. Bruises appeared mysteriously over my body. I became so weak I could barely drag myself around. My employer gave me one warning, then another. My children avoided me. When I awoke in the middle of the night with shakes and sweats and fears, I would hear my wife weeping quietly in bed beside me. My doctor warned me that if I kept on, I might have esophageal hemorrhaging and die. But now all choice was gone. I had to drink. What my doctor had warned me about finally happened. I was attending a convention in Chicago and carousing a day and night. Suddenly, I began vomiting, losing rectally great qualities of the blood. Hopeless now, I felt it would be better for my wife, my children, and everyone in my life if I went ahead and died. I found myself being lifted into a stretcher and whisked away in an ambulance to a strange hospital. I woke next day with tubes in both arms. Within a week, I was feeling well enough to go home. The doctors told me that if I ever took another drink, it might be my last. I thought I had learned my lesson, but my thinking was still confused, and I was still unable to deal with everyday living without help. Living 2 months, I was drinking again. Within 2 months, I was drinking again. In the next half year, I experienced two more esophageal hemorrhages, miraculously surviving each one by a hair. Each time I went back to drinking, even smuggling a bottle of vodka into the hospital as soon as the blood transfusions had ceased, my doctor finally declared he could no longer be responsible for me and sent me to a psychiatrist who practiced in the same suite of officers. He happened to be, by the grace of God, Dr. Harry Thibault, the psychiatrist who probably knew more about alcoholism than any other in the world. At that very time, he was a non alcoholic trustee on the General Service Board of Alcoholics Anonymous. It was the late Dr. It was the late Dr. Thibault then who persuaded me to seek help through AA. I acquired a sponsor and began attending meetings, but continued to drink. Within a few days, I found myself dying out on a drunk farm. While there, I read the big book and the grapevine and began the slow road back to health and sanity through the recovery program of AA. As the sober days grew into sober months and then sober years, a new and beautiful life began to emerge from the shambles of my former existence. The relationship between my wife and me was restored to a love and happiness that we had not known even before my alcoholism became acute. She no longer weeps in the night. As my children grew up, I was able to be a father to them when they most needed one. My company advanced me rapidly once my rehability was established again. Regaining my health, I became an avid jogger, sailor, and skier. All these things and many, many more AA gave me, but above all, it taught me how to handle sobriety. I had to learn how to relate to people before AA. I could never do that comfortably without alcohol. I have learned to deal with disappointments and problems that once would have sent me right to the bottle. I have come to realize that the name of the game is not so much to stop drinking as to stay sober. Alcoholics can stop drinking in many places and in many ways, but Alcoholic Anonymous offers us a way to stay sober. God willing, we members of AA may never again have to deal with drinking, but we have to deal with the sobriety every day. How do we do it? By learning through practicing the 12 steps and through sharing at meetings. How to cope with the problems that we look to booze to solve back in our drinking days. For example, we are told in AA that we cannot afford resentments and self-pity. So we learn to avoid these festering mental attitudes. We are told that we cannot afford resentment and self-pity. We learn to avoid these festering mental attitudes. Similarly, we rid ourselves of guilt and remorse as we clean out the garbage from our minds through the fourth and fifth steps of our recovery program. We learn how to level out the emotional swings that got us into trouble both when we were up and when we were down. We are taught to differentiate between our wants and which are never satisfied and our needs which are always provided for. We cast off the burdens of the past and the anxieties of the future as we begin to live in the present one day at a time. We are granted the serenity to accept the things we cannot change and through us lose our quickness to anger and our sensitivity to criticism. Let's do it. Above all, we reject fantasizing and accept reality. The more I drank, the more I fantasized everything I imagined. Everything I imagined getting, even for hurts and rejections. In my mind's eye, I played and replayed scenes in which I was plucked magically from the bar when I stood nursing a drink and was instantly exalted to some position of power and prestige. I lived in a dream world. AA led me gently from fantasizing this to embrace reality with open arms. And I found it beautiful. For at last, I was at peace with myself and with others and with God. Oh. Oh, cool. And with God. That was so cool. Let's do this, Prince. Number one, the AA tradition. The AA tradition. To those now in its fold, Alcoholic Anonymous has made the difference between misery and sobriety, and often the difference between life and death. AA can, of course, mean just as much to uncounted alcoholics not yet reached. Therefore, no society of men and women ever had a more urgent need for continuous effectiveness and permanent unity. We alcoholics see that we must work together and hang together, else most of all will finally die alone. The 12 traditions of Alcoholic Anonymous are: we AA believe the best answers that our experiences has yet given to those ever urgent questions. How can AA best function? And how can AA best stay whole and so survive? On the next pages, AA's 12 traditions are seen in their so-called short form, the form in general used today. This is a condensed version of the original long form AA traditions as first printed in 1946 because the long form is more explicit and of possible historic value. It is also reproduced. Okay, next is the 12 traditions. So, the moral of that, wow. So, you know, as I was reading this, I was thinking, who am I? Like, let me say something. I feel like I could take a drink and not, let me see, not this disease, let me say, the disease tells you that it's okay for you to take a drink. Not many people is gonna look at alcohol as a drug. You know, not many people is gonna say, not many people are gonna like admit to being an alcoholic. Just like this man, he didn't. You know what I mean? He still don't. He still did not listen. I feel like if we don't have the knowledge of NA or AA, we don't know anything. That man right there, he did not clean himself up until he got into Alcoholic Anonymous. You see how crazy that was? He didn't learn his lesson even after he was dying until he became a part of AA. And until any one of us gets the knowledge from these groups, these supportive groups, the people like us, these addicts, we're not gonna know anything. And I'm grateful for today. I'm grateful that I'm grateful that I found NA, because without NA and AA, like I would not be sober. And you know, thanks to God too. But like the knowledge from these books and the knowledge from the meetings and stuff like that, like I really appreciate them. And I want to thank my sponsor for telling me to read this, because this was a really good read. That was a good read. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned something from what I just read. So comment down below and let me know what you think. Stay sober one day at a time.